6:30.
6:30, okay. Meeting at 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order and start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All very much for coming tonight. So the roll call.
Steve, of course, is virtual. Susan will not be here. Eric wasn't sure if he could be
Okay.
virtual or not.
So he might join a little bit later.
And
I am here.
Are you here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Eric's here. Okay.
Um,
And I have one thing, I've got a kind of hard stop at 8 o'clock. We're babysitting and I gotta put the two kids to sleep with my daughter, with my daughters. Hopefully that's okay. A hard stop at 8.
Okay.
I'll be asleep at 8:15, I think, after this.
We're done by then.
is Leanne online?
Who, Leanne is, yes,
She
she was. Yeah, there she is.
Oh, there she is, okay, hi.
Steve, I'll make one recommendation. You may want to mute while you're
Okay.
not, yeah.
You got it. Absolutely.
So is someone control that? I mean, do we need?
Oh, I'll do it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I won't be able to see.
Well, no, you can see,
Oh, those are the participants, so I see.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
couldn't see
that's-
before, but.
those are the ones you want, right?
Oh, there's Eric.
We're good, and then these, you're good.
Okay.
You have Wayne Harms and Dave Lemay.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks very much. Next item is, the minutes from April 7th. I need, motion to approve them, please.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Chair. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. You all received them from Jerry, online, so hopefully you had a chance to read them, and so. All in favor to approve them? Questions, comments? In favor to approve them, please?
Aye.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. I presume that the thumbs up from you, Steve. I'll just keep watching on your side. Thank you very much, Steve. All right, next item, public comments. We have 2 online and many here. It's the opportunity to say anything you want at this point. There will be another opportunity at the end of the evening as well. Okay, we'll move right on.
Anybody?
Oh, online, Ayla May and
Wayne,
Wayne, I don't know.
raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. My work here is done.
Thank you. All right, first up is, expansion plan, and I guess Brett. And, oh, and you will introduce.
I will introduce it. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just get the PowerPoint set really quickly. If that's all right. Just a quick second. Larry got me all set up before.
And the group behind you are your support team?
Yes, I think the folks that are on
All
it.
right, very good.
Good for report side here. Just make that larger. There we go. Great. So thank you so much for having us here this evening. We really appreciate the opportunity. The Cape is deeply grateful to the town of Old Saybrook and its leadership over the last 2 decades for supporting the Cape and helping build one of the best public-private, or one of the strongest public-private partnerships in the region. Since 2009, the Cape has operated out of our 300 Main Street home, which is a town-owned building on the town hall campus. And as a nonprofit, our mission is to fully activate this space through programs and partnerships that directly benefit residents, local businesses, and the broader community. This partnership delivers a strong return on investment, economically and culturally, and is recognized as a model in other towns. So today, 28% of Old Saybrook households engage with the Cape annually. The remainder of our audience comes from outside of town, bringing visitors to our shops, to dine in our town and to stay locally. Simply put, the Cape is a proven entity as an economic driver and a solid investment for Old Saybrook. So we have 3 things for this evening: to demonstrate why 300 Main Street's expansion is both necessary and a major opportunity for the town of Old Saybrook. Second, to present the proposed plan for 300 Main Street that the Kate's Board of Trustees and staff have been working on very thoughtfully for the last 4 years, and finally to ask for your support. So to set the stage, our proposal is a 7,500 square foot expansion of 300 Main Street. This expansion will allow us to meet demand, expand programming, and deepen our impact. We're currently operating at or beyond capacity, and the opportunity cost of turning away programs, partnerships, and participants continues to grow. So first, a brief look at how we got here. This is, oh, I didn't do the introduction because I got sidetracked with this, I'm sorry. This is my colleague, Robin Andrioli. She is the Kate's Director of Development and Community Relations. And this is Cosmo Prigliano, our board president at the Kate. So now Robin will go ahead.
Slide.
Yes.
As many of you probably know, the Old Saybrook Town Hall was conceived by Joseph Cohn, who was a local businessman in Old Saybrook. He was a writer, composer, and actor, and he and his colleagues in the Old Saybrook Musical and Dramatic Club dreamt of this building. It was completed in 1911 for approximately $25,000. And it had many uses, and they were all good uses: town meetings, plays, musicals, school choir concerts and graduations, even basketball games. Of course, it became the town hall offices later on in the 1950s. But at the time it was built in 1911, Old Saybrook had about 1,500 residents. The hall served them well, along with visitors from surrounding towns. And now we flash forward to 2026, there are probably more than 10,500 residents in Old Saybrook. And the Kate has been welcoming up to 80,000 people a year through its doors for a variety of different programs, though not much has changed from that original footprint. We had the addition of a lobby and a few offices toward the back of the building. After 16 successful years in town, the Kate's education, enrichment, and performance programs have far outpaced our current footprint, but we are encouraged to continue offering more. For example, in 2012, we launched our summer camp, Kate's Camp for Kids. We had fewer than 100 children in that first year, and this year we will serve over 400 children in the exact same space. So we're really feeling the limitations of our physical place.
All right, so in our first year of operation in 2009, we presented about 100 events and have sold about 15,000 tickets. Over our 16-year history, aside from the pandemic dip, we've had a steady trajectory of increased programming and impact. The center has grown to be much more than just a show or two on weekends. It is, as our tagline suggests, more than you can imagine. Under the last 11 and a half years of my leadership, we've moved ticket sales from about 28,000 to 70,000 tickets a year. And since our opening, we have welcomed 620,000 patrons and have presented over 3,800 shows. This past year alone saw 385 shows and events and over 80,000 patrons and visitors. We're nearly fully booked year-round, limiting opportunities. But still, we have prioritized partnerships with other nonprofits, including the Old Saybrook Historical Society, Acton Public Library, Old Saybrook Rotary, the Florence Grizzle Museum as well. And Vista Life Innovations, we host their annual All Abilities production each spring, which showcases diversity and inclusion in our regional community. On the staffing front, we've increased from 2 full-time to 10 full-time staff members. And over the course of a year, we have over 65 seasonal and part-time staff members, including technicians, concession crew, cleaning crew, and education staff. This growth was tremendous, but the last few years have caused us to look deeply at what we need to continue and expand upon this success. So that answer, after 4 years of study, exploration, and thoughtful consideration, continues to be an increase in contiguous and well thought out space. Continued growth requires more functional contiguous space.
So while live performance and cultural events are really our core, they are just one of the pillars. We have 3 pillars of the organization: arts, education, and enrichment, and sustaining Catherine Hepburn's legacy are also critical to our mission. With regard to education, last year, more than 2,500 students from Old Saybrook and surrounding towns attended free matinee performances and other arts education programs at the Kate. We're happy to respond to requests from local teachers to host classroom tours, theater workshops, and other activities in the theater when time permits. And we had, as we mentioned before, 460 campers enrolled in our summer camp. We see education and enrichment as essential for growth and where much of the need comes from. The demand exceeds capacity. Even with that many children enrolled for the upcoming summer, we will have 100 families on a wait list. We'd like to offer a continuum of programming with teaching artists, community partners, and others, but are limited by space. here and through other resources. So even though we'd like to have programs for ages 14 to 17, expand year-round and after-school programs and continue what we've been doing with an adult population, the bottom line is we have the staff and we have the demand, but we don't have the space. But Katharine Hepburn's legacy, the Cape preserves her story as a source for inspiration that fuels creativity and connection today. Every show, exhibit, and educational experience is an invitation to encounter the arts through the values that she embodied: confidence, curiosity, excellence, and integrity, and to see them reflected at the Cape. During the pandemic, thanks to our donors and the town of Old Saybrook, we turned what was once a small gallery into the official Katharine Hepburn Museum, offering exhibits and public programs about the Hepburns, Old Saybrook, and Connecticut history, and attracting thousands of annual visitors. This feature really changed the dynamic of the center during the day, especially. We have individuals, small groups, and tour buses visiting us on a regular basis. Museum programs, including lectures and author talks on topics like Mrs. Hepburn and the suffrage movement and the hurricane of 1938, have grown in popularity. And the annual Spirit of Katharine Hepburn Award, celebrated at our gala, turns the spotlight on Old Saybrook as we honor someone who shares Miss Hepburn's bold, independent spirit.
So we've shown you our growth and our limitations, and now we'd like to highlight the Cape as an economic engine and a community partner. So this graph that I put up there shows the Cape's ticket sales since we opened. I know it's a little bit small, but essentially it goes from 2009 and it comes to the current year. You'll never guess where the pandemic was, there in the middle. But I would like to highlight how fast we came back from the pandemic. And not only did we just come back, we continued at a really rapid rate. Our last year of operation, I mentioned about 80,000 patrons and visitors came to the Cape. And to think a little bit about what that means for Old Saybrook, we're using the Americans for the Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 study. This is a study that Americans for the Arts puts out about every 2 to 4 years. This was the first one since the pandemic. Things got a little bit off track there. But it states that attendees at nonprofit arts and cultural events spend an average of $38.46 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. So if you do that math quickly, the 80,000 times that number, that means that the Cape potentially contributes more than $3 million to the economic vitality of Old Saybrook in the last year. And we took that a step further and we looked at all ticket sales since the beginning, and I realized things have changed a bit with inflation and all of those pieces. But in quick math, that takes us to about $25 million since we opened in 2009, with all the people coming to town here. To take that one step further, thought a little bit about the future. We're going to touch on it in just a moment, but we anticipate about a 35% foot traffic growth with this expansion, which would move that $3 million to about $4 million next year, or in future years. I also wanted to quickly touch on the Cape's audience. So about 8% of our audience comes directly from Saybrook. I'll speak more to that in just a moment in terms of what that 8% means. And then from Brantford over to New London and kind of encapsulating the Connecticut River Valley, another 31%. The remainder of the state makes up about 47% of our audience. Our neighboring states, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York is another 9%. And about 5% of our audience comes from outside of that area. In the last year, 49 of 50 states were represented, as well as Canada and the UK. We emphasize that the 8% from Old Saybrook is actually a really great positive, because that is people coming from outside of town, spending money in our town here. And we know that that 8% makes up about 28% of the households in Old Saybrook. And we anticipate that number to be higher because many of the education programs that my colleague Robin mentioned, when the entirety of Goodwin comes to our Page to Stage program in the spring, or the middle school classes are coming to the anti-bullying show in the fall, or all the other things, they're not in that number because they're not ticketed events. So those households are coming there. And one thing I wanted to circle back to, the Americans for the Arts study. In previous studies, they gave us an in-town spend and an out-of-town spend. Of course, the in-town spend was much lower because there were people just coming from their house over to the Cape and probably heading back home. And an out-of-town spend where people were coming to our town. Because we know about 90% of our patrons come from out of town, our number could actually be quite higher than that number. So the reminder is that there are a lot of people coming from out of town and spending money in our town. I didn't hit my 2 little buttons there, but that's okay. On the financial stability and opportunity side, I just wanted to put out the most major reminder that as a cultural nonprofit, we only exist for the betterment of our community. Any net surplus dollars are reinvested back into operations, the facility, and the community. And as such, we're really grateful to the town for the use of the space. But the Kate's income comes from two sources, and that's earned income, which are ticket sales, which is about 60% of where our income comes from, and then about 40% that we raise, and that's from donors, local businesses, foundations, and that's how we keep the rest of the center open. Also wanted to give a quick mention of our volunteer guild, because we have over 220 individuals in our volunteer guild helping make the Kate happen. Ushers, people at the front desk, some of our box office folks, they're really vital to us. So as I mentioned, the town of Old Saybrook and the Cape have remained for nearly 2 decades one of the best examples of a public-private partnership in the state or the region. Old Saybrook allows the Cape to use 300 Main Street, our 300 Main Street home in a long-term lease agreement, and the Cape returns that investment exponentially through economic impact. And while the town of Old Saybrook remains responsible for the structure and major systems of the Cape's 300 Main Street home, over the last 10 years, the Cape has sought grants and tax dollars I just lost my spot. I'm so sorry. We got grant and tax dollars available to nonprofits to replace our aging boiler to an energy efficient unit, to replace and improve our aging HVAC chiller to a high energy efficiency unit. We've made significant upgrades to many systems in the building, improving energy efficiency and often rectifying problems that existed from the original renovation. We've improved ADA systems that have been added, such as the push buttons for public doors and things like that. The entire building has been transitioned to LED lighting, and the facility continues to be cared for at the highest level. These costs were all cash neutral to the town and funded via the nonprofit. And then there have been some projects that we've taken on partially together, sometimes with the town in the lead. One of the examples of that is in 2020. Many of you may have been on this board when this happened. The town of Old Saybrook restored the columns at the facade of the building. While the Kate secured additional funding for the repairs of windows and door trims on the exterior. The Kate also installed our Walk of Fame patio in the front, and we've added our sparkling marquee, and we've continued to maintain our beautiful gardens at the front of the town hall campus for the last 2 decades. This building has become the glimmering front of the town hall campus, and it's a true collaboration to ensure it remains as such. So the overall result, a well-maintained, highly visible community asset. So now I get to show you what that may look like. So this is, and it's a little bit smaller, but you can see Main Street to the left, Sheffield to the top of the screen, Town Hall to the right, and the town green to the bottom. This is the proposed expansion, 7,500 square feet, 2 floors. It's a very flexible space, it's a very efficient space, and it integrates with the current building. Key features in it, certainly there will be things like an elevator and offices we'll hit on in just a moment, but I want to add that red ring that I just added. And that's really where much of the magic happens. On the first floor, it's a little bit small, but it is 2 classrooms. They're about 500 square feet. It is a center operable partition, so we can open and make one space that is 1,000 square feet for all sorts of different programming. Similarly, on the second level, it is also 2 rooms, each about 630 square feet to make just over 1,200 square feet. That could be 2 rooms, center operable partition again, or it creates a approximately 90-seat performance space. And then I can show you just a few renderings of what this may look like. These are artist renderings and they are still slightly a work in progress, though we are well into architectural design. Oh my goodness, sorry, let me go back a bit there. I hit the wrong button. This delays a little bit on me. There we go. You can see the historic columns there on the left. You can see the lobby that was added in 2009 sort of in the center, and then the new section, which sits just in front of Town Hall there, on the sort of right side. This,
Glass,
right, the next slot, but
kind of a lot of glass, looks like. The windows.
there's a lot of conversations happening right now about glass, and that is possibly in a slight reduction at the moment.
I like it though.
You like it?
I do.
So this is actually, one thing I will mention really quickly then, I think, I've had this conversation with a few people. There's something sort of interesting about the very historic 115-year-old front, and then the transition to the current lobby that was added 20 years ago that sort of moves to slightly contemporary. And then the future expansion is just a little bit more contemporary from that.
Hmm.
This is just a slightly closer image of the new section of the building, with also a view from the rear of the building. Again, still artist renderings, things are still developing on these, but you can see how they've tried to take all the cues from the existing building so that it that feels very much like the what existed. This space is one of the classrooms on the first level. Directly to the right of this image would be that operable partitions. There'd be a second room just like this, and then those rooms could open together. And then I will say this space upstairs has changed the most in terms of the wood and the way it looks and feels. But the idea here is that there is a performance space on the second level with up to 90 seats. Currently it's at 91 seats. That can show film and do all sorts of things. And whether it's a screen like that first image, or a band in the second, or it's a lecture, or those chairs are all removed and it's banquet space, or it could be so many different things. Now hand it over to my colleague Robin.
Thanks. As Brett said earlier, we feel this expansion is an opportunity for reinvestment in creativity, engagement, and community. And what will we do with it, right? Here's our plan. More programming and more possibility. The new flexible performance space that can seat up to 90 can be used for a variety of things. More lectures, film, art classes, community events. We'd also like to hear from the community and understand which programs and activities they'd like to see it for. There will be enhanced artistic capabilities in the way of improved access to the backstage area with an elevator. Currently, our artists use the exterior metal staircase to get upstairs, or they'll come in and use the passenger elevator, which has taken a bit of a beating with road cases and equipment over the last 16 years. There'll be larger artist hospitality spaces and streamline logistics in a way that will really open the door for us to bring in larger acts. Comfort and convenience for our patrons, that is always a major priority. We'll have expanded lobby space, and there will be additional restrooms in the new section accessible from the current section. So when we have sold out shows, we won't have folks waiting in line for 15 or 20 minutes for the restrooms. There will be additional gathering spaces too. It'll be a little bit more roomy. And our camp program will have an entrance right on Main Street, which means that parents will pick up and drop off from Main Street no longer taking up spaces in the town hall parking lot. There will be more dedicated exhibit space for our museum collection, which, believe it or not, does number in the thousands with pieces of memorabilia. So we'll be able to tell even more stories about our local history and the Hepburn family. Education growth, we've talked about quite a bit. The dedicated classroom spaces will allow us to host year-round programming, accommodate more summer campers. We have continually said that this is something we envision as a comprehensive cultural arts center, where there's an ever-growing menu of activities, and many of them complementary to what is appearing on our stage. So perhaps we have a master class with an artist who is performing in the evening, a paint night, which is a nod to one of Miss Hepburn's favorite pastimes, and more for all ages. So those lifelong learners will have something to look forward to at the Cape. Accessibility and sustainability. This will be built for long-term community use. This space is again flexible and meant to be responsive to community needs. It could provide additional meeting space for town use, potentially could have availability for town resident use. And the reality is we're out of space. We're not out of ideas. Our staff and programs are constrained, and we feel like opportunities are being missed.
So taking just a real quick look at what growth could look like in this space, I've already mentioned 35%. There's a little bit small, so I'll keep kind of just going through these. 35% in attendance. We anticipate 50 to 75% growth in youth programming, whether it be camp or daytime programming, schools coming to us. Certainly expanded offerings, smaller scale performances and events in that new space, music, lectures, spoken word, all of the things. And the ability to grow things that we're already doing. So like we showed them that opera simulcast live from New York, and audiences would love talkbacks for that. But on a Saturday when that ends, we're ushering those folks out as fast as we can because the band's already got the back door to load into the stage. And now we have a space to move them to. I mentioned paint nights, younger audiences. Unless the ability to be able to take an event that might be able to do 90 seats now, but might be able to do 280 seats in the future and move that space to space. There would be simultaneous programming, multiple events in one night with staggered start times as to not affect Main Street traffic. And increased foot traffic also equates to local spending. We spent a lot of time talking about education expansion already. And so the outcomes are fewer trade-offs, more access, stronger overall experience, and that comprehensive cultural arts center. I did want to answer one question that I think might come our way. Why not just rent space on the other side of town and have this other space? And we really see the future as contiguous space because on the patron side, when you come to the Cape and experience the energy of being there for an event, and maybe there's now another event in the other section of the building, and you take in the museum, it's a full experience. it wouldn't be the same if you're on the other side of town coming to a 90-seat little space. And then on the logistics side, it's shared staff resources. So it's same technicians, it's the same staff running that, it's the same bartenders, it's the same experience. It's all part of the Kate experience, which is welcoming, easy, quality, and something everyone wants to be a part of.
So why support this project? Well, as we've heard tonight, the K is an economic driver for Old Saybrook, generating an estimated $3 million per year in local spending beyond the ticket sale. This expansion has the potential to increase that to nearly $4 million a year. The Kate's draw from other towns, states, and even countries further supports Old Saybrook as a destination for tourism and commerce. Expanding our offerings in this additional space will help to meet some of the objectives of the town's plan of conservation and development, both in terms of supporting cultural arts and cultural connections. The establishment of a comprehensive cultural arts center that goes beyond live performance also helps to make the case should the town seek to establish a state-recognized cultural district in the future. The expansion will help the Cape to continue adding to Old Saybrook residents' quality of life, youth development, and lifelong learning opportunities. With great respect for our partnership with the town, we will continue to invest in the facility and the community. Our track record has included maintaining and improving a key town asset, completing major building upgrades at no cost to the town, and contributing to an exponential return on the town's investment. The expansion builds on a successful low-risk partnership model that has worked for nearly 2 decades. It isn't just about growing the Cape, it's about increasing economic returns, meeting existing demand, expanding community services, and strengthening a proven partnership that benefits Old Saybrook as a whole. And now I welcome Cosmo Prigliano, our board president.
I just want to spend a few minutes to follow up on a point that Brett made at the very beginning of the presentation. We as a board and organization spent the last 4 years on this project thinking about it. We wanted to be very thoughtful and deliberate. And so it started with the visioning process where we asked the question, what do we want the Cape to look like in 10 years on its 25th anniversary? And as we were going through the process, it became very clear that in order for us to continue our growth and be an economic driver for the community, we needed more space. And as it was talked about just now, we needed more contiguous space. So a little over 2 years ago, we hired Saybrook architects to do a study of how we use the current space and how we might use new space. And so they initiated some designs that over the past few years has gone through a number of revisions to culminate to what you saw tonight. And it's space that, as Brett and Robin has said, would really serve us well. Once those preliminary designs were created, we brought in AZ Corporation, AZ Construction Corporation, a well-known construction company in the area, to do a detailed cost analysis, to give us an idea of what the scope of the project was. And we've also, it's proven to be very helpful as we go forward in managing the cost of the project. During that time, we had several meetings with Carl, with Chris Costa, to get their feedback and to make sure that the project lines up with the vision of the town. About a year ago, we started focusing on the funding of the project, especially as it relates to the Kate's funding. And so we hired CCS, a professional fundraising consulting firm, to take us through a feasibility study. And what they did was they wanted to see that the organization was ready to run a capital campaign, that there would be support from the donors, from the members, and from the community. And the answer that we got back was that there was strong support. And so with that information, about 6 months ago, with the help of CCS, we launched a capital campaign, the quiet phase of the capital campaign. I'm gonna step back a moment. About a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, one of our initial meetings with Carl, we shared the findings of and the cost estimate of the project. About a year ago, the cost of the project was estimated to be $12 million. And we had a conversation about what the framework of funding would look like. And we talked about the town funding $7 million and the Kate raising $5 million through the capital campaign. And so fast forward to today, we've asked AZ, and AZ has updated the cost estimates based on the current design. The total cost of the building remains estimated at $12 million. A very high level breakout of that, The cost of construction is about $8.5 million. The cost of architects, engineers, and contingencies are about $3 million. And systems, furniture, fundraising makes up the remaining $500,000. That get us to $12 million. Since starting the capital campaign, we've raised a little over $3 million to date for our most loyal donors. And that includes 100% board participation. So at this point, we're happy to and pleased to begin the conversation about the town's funding portion of this project. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
That's a lot of information, so thank you.
I know.
Yeah.
Almost.
Is there anyone who puts, oh, I can barely see. I don't know if I can see Steve and or Eric. I'll start with them online first.
Oh, I can stop the share here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I'll start with Steve or Eric. I can't see you at all, Eric. So if you guys have a question, I'll start with you guys first. Is it okay, Steve? Anybody from here?
I don't know if Eric speak and.
Steve.
Oh, yeah.
George, this is Eric. I don't have any questions at the moment,
All right, thank you, Eric.
but I would like to comment that as someone whose son has gone through the Cape camp in the summer, it's a marvelous. He loved it. He's 9 years old. He told me last year he was retiring from show business to focus on baseball, but he loved it for the years that he went.
Get up there anyway.
And, the only thing I'll add, George, is, we, I'm sure we're gonna get into, I didn't see the cost of the town, whether that's included in the prospective bond offering, but Cape is certainly one of the many factors that drove us to Saybrook. It's, it's a wonderful facility. We've been to it more than a few times, and I think it's just a big draw to the already beautiful, shoreline community you have. So kudos to everyone. That's it.
Thanks so much, Steve. Yeah, please.
Just if I could ballpark it, what is your current revenues per year? And what do you expect to get a pro forma in terms of once you're fully up and operating, what it'll be, once this?
We sit at about a $4 million a year organization right now. 5.5, I feel like, is sort of 5.5 to 6 is sort of where we would potentially go with this version. Because there'll be more opportunities for program revenue, more opportunities for grants and other funding for programs. 35% increase to the economic impact likely means a similar 35% increase for the Cape. So I feel like that sits about right. Also, the expansion to the education programs is pretty key. We didn't mention this, we're actually already renting from the middle school for some of our programs in the summer. And which is great, except with a state license, just to bring the kids back to the Cape to be on stage, that is considered a field trip and involves like reflective jackets and all sorts of craziness. So doing that all under one roof and growing that program will have probably the largest increase in terms of dollars coming in for that camper. Dollars going back out because we're paying people, it's all reinvested, but somewhere between, I'd say 5.5 to 6 in a 2-year ramp up, not overnight.
Yeah, oh, sure. Okay.
Given that rental, by the way, it means we have to have duplicate staff members. You must have camp directors at both locations. You have to have first aiders at both locations. You're doubling your staff just to be able to have more kids in the camp.
And I guess I would say too, we may still keep working with the middle school for years because we know that every time we go and do something, we just keep growing what we do and serving more people. So we wouldn't rule that out in the future, but we'd like to try to bring it back to one centralized location.
And in terms of the fundraising, where do you want to be before you say we're ready to go? Do you want to have, are you still looking at the 5 million that you would raise and 7 million for the town? Is that still where you are right now? And would you want to have all that 5 million sort of pledged or committed before you would commence the project?
That is sort of the goal. I don't know if you wanna.
Yeah, I mean, we are targeting to raise a little over $5 million, prior to the vote. And, we are, and Wayne is on the call, but he is looking at the alternatives to make sure that we have the cash available to start the project. And so we're confident that, that's where we'll be, when we get ready to start the project, assuming that the timeline that we talked about before is, still current.
And how about in terms of public and private grants? Are they out there? Are they available?
For the project specifically?
Yeah, for building project.
There aren't as many capital grants as we would hope for. The way that things work at the state level, the community is not eligible for the community investment project, which is really for more financially strapped cities. So we wouldn't be able to apply for that. Should a steep opportunity come up, possibly, but that would have to be applied for on behalf of the town. We wouldn't be able to apply as a nonprofit. We are looking at another program called Good to Great, which was offered by Economic Development about 3 years ago. There's actually money set aside in the legislature for that money, for that program, but they haven't put it forward yet, so it has not gone out for RFP. But that is a program we would apply to for up to $500,000 for the project. We do see the most efficient path forward being individual donors, and that is really where this $3 million so far has come from.
And a lot of funders in grant type dollars tend to fund programs,
Yeah,
not
program.
brick and mortar. And so we certainly see kind of a next phase to this where we're actually going after several grants for the programs that we want to do in this space, but they don't apply to the capital side at this point. So we kind of have a next chapter for that, and we're already thinking there, but it doesn't necessarily help the brick and mortar.
And CCS was very clear to us throughout the whole process that the success we're gonna have is coming from individuals. And so that's really where our focus has been, and you know, we're optimistic that, you know, we're gonna hit the numbers that we targeted.
Just very quickly, the idea is right now, we're tracking for potentially 2 projects together. The DPW garage, which you've heard about. I anticipate having a cost estimate on that relatively soon. As this board is well aware, we last year set aside about 1.5 million from surplus, and feel like I should do a little, 1.5. And, but, about, 200 of that is for 0.1 architects to take us from design right through construction administration. So that's good, about a little bit over 200. So I anticipate there'll be about 1.25 in that account towards that project. I don't know what that project is going to cost. It did just get a little bit bigger. So that we had a meeting about 2 weeks ago. We're going to take over the area that is currently the dog pound. I don't know how many of you know that, where that is or what it is. It's completely, if we would not be certified as a dog pound if we had to build it again like it is built. So we're probably gonna go to a regional model on that. I've already talked to Clinton, and we're welcome there. So we don't have a lot of dogs really. Every now and then you get a litter every now and then, like we haven't had one in, I can't even remember the last time, but so I am anticipating having something on that project relatively soon. Previously in these meetings, you've heard Leanne talk about debt and debt service. And as far as the steep grant, certainly that would be available. It's a town building, it's a nonprofit. Assuming Saybrook Point moves forward, that's also a target for something like that, of course. But I've also indicated when we were talking about Saybrook Point, there may be other sources of income from that. We have a capital non-recurring account. We're going to have a surplus this year. Leanne has already talked about that. There's of course potential for debt issuance, and grants for Saybrook Point. So I think once that acquisition is final, we'll invite DEP, we'll invite OPM, we'll see they're very interested in that project. So that project may have more source funds for it from other places than maybe the Cape does. So anyway, I anticipate these two projects together, and I anticipate them in the fall. We don't want to do it in November. We may not even want to do it in October because that, you know, the election is really the first couple days of November. So, you know, you don't want to have a referendum where you're sending people to the polls 2 weeks before you have an election. So the target date that we've talked about is September. To try to get these folks moving with a number and also the DPW project. So I just wanted to kind of give that larger picture of what we're thinking. We had a meeting about 3 or 4 weeks ago with our bond counsel who at Shipman and Goodwin. It's normally Danielle LeBron, but Matt Ritter, the Speaker of the House, is also bond counsel up there. Danielle wasn't available. She was on vacation. So we met with Matt Ritter. We met with our financial advisor, Mark, what's his last name? Help me, Leanne. Mark, can't think of it right now.
Chapman,
But
Mark Chapman.
yeah, Chapman, right. So we had a good meeting about three weeks ago or so, talking about the process. You know, it would involve Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, public hearing, because it's a bond issuance, has to go to referendum. So we'll keep our registrars in this busy. Mark?
Thank you. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Cape. I'm a patron, I'm a member, frequently go to shows. They're not as much since I've had little kids, but excited about the educational opportunities. So I'm supportive of this effort, basically, however it happens. But of course, the town, we have to balance all of our needs and constituencies. I just had a few questions. And Carl, you may know some of this more, but I know it's a long-term lease and it's decayed. Is it 100-year lease? Is it
It's a
25
years.
It's 120.
5-year increment?
20-year.
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 So if something were to happen, you know, and the Cape wasn't able to function as the Cape, the town would still own the building with the improvements.
Yeah, that's correct.
Carte blanche, okay. As far as, let's see. If this is done, do you anticipate it would make grant writing easier? You know, because you have more programming options, like, is this gonna potentially compound bringing you even more grants to offset increased costs?
Yes, we do think we can leverage grants with this. We
Okay.
are in a position now where we don't offer as much as we really could.
Right.
And having that extra space means we're not fighting against ourselves for, you know, occupying the theater. So we can plan much further out, and that's really where grant writing will come in. We need to plan to write grants.
And if I could add membership dollars to that, and we operate on membership dollars, that's how folks support us. And as an example, we've been doing more lectures with the Historical Society. There are people in town that they've never come to a music concert at the Cape, but that's their thing. And so we're attracting new audiences by offering new types of things in the space. And so as a cultural arts center, that sort of brings a lot of those pieces together and continues to bring new people in that will support as well.
And then, well, a couple things I know, because I went to your presentation at the Cape, actually, yeah. And I know, like, parking you addressed, we have that plaza. Is there an agreement with the owner of that plaza?
You mean on Sheffield Street?
Yeah, no, down the street,
Plaza.
the Paperback Cafe.
It's Bill Childress.
Right, Bill, is there an agreement that you have for parking there, so we can always count on that?
So there was a parking statement of use and agreement originally in 2009. We're in the process of sort of chunking through that with Chris Costa in preparation right now. A lot has changed in 20 years in terms of space on Main Street and Uber and all the different things around it. So we're kind of trying to rethink it. There is a calculation of every 4 seats requires 1 parking spot, and But, you know, the parking lot across the street and 25 Sheffield didn't exist when we came up. So there are a lot of pieces that have changed. So we are working diligently through that right now. And remote lots, if thinking about what our parking maps will look like in the future that we're putting out to patrons. So there's a whole process behind the scenes for that.
I'm just trying to have answers for when constituents.
Yeah.
I know I know parking, in fact, you quoted some statistic where we actually have better parking than most, right? Like it's a shorter walk from that lot than it is.
It's, yes, I mean, things they have to be within 1,000 feet of the Cape based on zoning regulations, and the closest parking at the Bushnell is further away than that, so.
Right, okay.
That's just an example, but yes.
Okay, and you mentioned potential for resident use. I know at the presentation, we talked a little bit about that. I know it's just because, you know, we have the pavilion now, that's gonna go away as an option. And I don't know if the board is, I'm assuming the board has talked about this, but you said potential, to me, that means you haven't said we'll do that yet. I know there's gonna be demand for public spaces. You know, I know we're renovating the library too, so we have other options in the estuary, but I think that's something that would go a long way to getting public support, is if residents or even non-residents would have the option to rent, or if their local nonprofit groups even just use for free some of your conference room spaces, or, you know, rarely maybe even a smaller performance space or something like that.
In many ways, that's happening now. There are private individuals using space for other things during the year. I mean, everything from the Gold Star moms packing cards to, there's a lot of that stuff happening. I think we're trying to do a thoughtful analysis of what that looks like, because what we, you know, are trying to figure out how the balance will work is not blocking ourselves from doing the things that we're trying to do and bring people to town, because I don't know, Club X, you already had that space reserved. So right now we're trying to figure out what that looks like thoughtfully.
Okay, I think it's safe to say that, you know, if we have the space, it'll give us far more opportunity to designate some space for community use. I think the challenge is we don't know what the scenario really looks like. We've gone through some estimates and so we want to leave that as an option.
Yeah.
We don't want to overcommit.
Right.
So that's sort of where we are.
And thinking of those spaces as the flexible spaces that they are, where there's actually 4 rooms with center divides, there's lots of different ways to use that. So we can divide and change and probably bring in more things that way. So absolutely.
And I just want to find, I know Robin already, but I haven't met you yet, Brett, but into the board. This is such a professionally run organization. You know, I've gone to, I know we all have, right? I've gone to a lot of events and smaller venues like that. And it's just, I mean, it's almost perfect. There's a band that I see every year, and they come and they said from stage when they're like, this is lit, and they've been touring for like 30 years. And it said, this is literally the nicest place we've ever.
And I have to give credit where credit is due. It's all because of Brett's leadership and Robert and the rest of the staff.
Yeah,
They do a
great
terrific
job. So thank you. I'm sure we can count on you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had 2. Can you elaborate on the lifelong learners? I mean, obviously, we're having a changing demographic in our area, and I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were there.
We tested programs over the last year. One that we tested is a ukulele workshop, and it was for ages 14 and up or 10 and up or something like that. And it was all seniors, seniors. We did it again. We did it for beginners and advanced, and the response was so overwhelming. We literally had to use the stage because it was the only flat surface that we had where the instructor could see everyone. Not ideal. You have to go upstairs to get to the stage. It wasn't fully accessible, but it also meant we couldn't have a program on the stage that whole afternoon because of ukulele players coming in and out. We've tested a public speaking class. Adults signed up for that. We had one version for students, one for adults. The adult class ran. Students weren't interested at the time. We never say no, we keep trying. So we are also getting requests all the time for things that people would like to see. And that's where I mentioned, you know, we need to do a focus group at some point, talk to people in town, learn some of the programs they'd like to see. You know, we used to have Tracy Art Center across the street from the Cape. Can we fill that gap? Can we bring in artists to provide art classes? So we're looking at all those possibilities.
Be interested to be involved in it.
Sure. Thank you, Megan.
And just one other question, is there a possibility, I mean, as, you know, Carl was setting things up about the bond issue and some of the fundraising that's already happened, is there an ability to do phases? I don't know if that's been a question.
A little bit less of an ability to do it in phases because it's a building, right? We could not finish the section, I suppose. There is an interior renovation piece that we have internally talked about, a small portion of it that could be sort of phased.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to contiguous space, so we build it, we have to build the entire footprint. But as Brett said, are there components that we don't finish and we finish it over time? I suppose that's always an option, right?
Just sort of put it out, start using the space as well,
Yeah,
but
not that
it's not as though there's a wing this direction, a wing that direction, we'll build this one, it's sort of one sort of space at the moment, but.
I have a two-part question, and actually maybe follow up on Megan's comments, but if all goes well with the $5 million fundraising and then the efforts in the fall in terms of any bonding, one, what would be kind of a best guess, first shovel in the ground, and then two, would the existing facility or at least part of it be open during construction? Or would that be, just kind of like a total shutdown?
Let me answer them out of order, and I'll let you take the first piece if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the shutdown, AZ Construction, this will go to bid, of course, because it will have to, but we have been working with AZ, they will be a bidder, they're not precluded from bidding by doing these costing and estimates. For example, they have worked in hospitals, and they are working under a model where we will not shut down during construction. There will be a change of that back staircase to the side where the garage door is and some other pieces, but we will not shut down. We will pretty much fully operate the entire time. So that's the answer to that question.
And that was kind of, it was a goal of ours from the very beginning, to do whatever we could to keep the facility open. And that's the reason we're here, and so we didn't want to close down, so we're very optimistic about that. In terms of when we'll start breaking ground, I mean, if all goes according to the plan that we've laid out tonight, we're hopeful that December, January timeframe is when we start the project. And by all estimates, within 12, 13, 14 months, we're done.
That's terrific.
The one major goal was to only disrupt one summer camp programming. We're working with the schools right now, having a conversation about moving the entire program for one summer to one of the school facilities, so we don't lose the summer. So that is an ongoing conversation, but we only want to disrupt one summer. So if it started too late where it could potentially disrupt two, we want to make an adjustment to how we do that.
Thank you. That's awesome.
So I have a few questions. I mean, first of all, thank you very much for coming in. That was an excellent presentation. So, I may have missed Jeff's question, but just a quick question here. So when you're saying that your income, right, is 6% from ticket sales and 40% from potentially donations and so on. I mean, what is the total amount that you guys?
We're just over a $4 million.
Okay, so essentially your donation accounts for almost 2 million of that. Maybe 1.8, 1.6 million of that, right?
The contributed income?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that the same people that has contributed to 3 million so far as well?
So the people that have contributed to 3 million is a very small group of people that are just our closest friends and makes up a very small.
And it will move into a public phase. There is sort of a calculation as to when you pull the trigger on that public phase, when you have X amount of money. Now, our path is a little bit unique. I've always kind of thought of it as two trains running on the same tracks because we're working through this town side of things. So it's kind of already public because of that, but we're kind of trying to bring those two things together probably for a June-ish kind of bigger analysis to where we're at and making the campaign more public as well, because it'll be more public from get out and vote sort of side as well.
Yeah, no, the point is just at some point you hit the same people, right? And you're gonna start hurting on both
To
sides.
give you context, so we have about 2,500 annual donors to the Kate. And so far, what's been raised for the campaign is from 31 donors.
Amazing.
So we have quite a few people that we can still talk to.
And we're using the campaign to introduce the Kate to a lot of new folks as well. With CCS's help, we've identified a lot of people in our community and extended community that we should really get to know, and we're working on that as well. So I think the lasting impact of CCS's work will be good for the Kate.
There are a lot of Hepburn fans in the world.
Appreciate that. So really, let me see if I can get some ballpark numbers, right? So you're anticipating this entire project would cost $12 million. construction, engineering, architecture, and over, so, and you anticipate raising 5 million, and you're actually essentially asking for 7 million from the town. We don't. If the 7 million doesn't quite make it, are you guys gonna basically have other options?
I think if we were forced to look at other options, we'd start looking at the details of the building to see if there are some reductions that we can make without reducing the functionality, but still creating a building that looks pretty and is suited for sitting here on the town campus. And so, and we're constantly going through that process, right? We're not waiting to hear whether we get to 7 million or not. We're very focused on delivering a building that makes sense. And, you know, you mentioned that there was a lot of glass, and while that looks great, it's very expensive, which is why, as Brett said, we're taking a hard look at that. So to answer your question, there is some flexibility, not a lot. We're hopeful that we get as close to 7 million as we can.
And yeah, as a conversation goes on, there may be opportunity where we need to work a little bit harder too. We're not ruling that out, but this is the version that we feel really confident in right now. So, you know.
Okay, and so, again, and so for the timing, then the anticipation that sometime around September, early fall, will actually go out to referendum with a number. And then you guys hope to break ground by the end of the year.
That we're January
We're
time.
rushing along pretty quick.
Well, we have architects and engineers working on, you know, the various process to the plan to get us to the point where we can go out to bid.
There's also sort of the concept where we sort of need to be shovel ready before the referendum because we need to know what the number is. So there's a little bit of where does that sit? So it does seem somewhat quick, but we would need to be nearly to that point by the time of referendum anyways. So
as we go through this process, one of the things that, you know, we're very focused on is understanding the cost and not having any surprises. And so we need to be as far along as we are to have the confidence that we have in the number.
And we've retained AZ in a capacity that they are doing multiple gate checks for us during the process so that we can significantly minimize any of those surprises, especially if they are potentially one of the bidders. I anticipate they won't give us a number that is very low now and come back with a very high number because they probably want to do the project. Not to say they will be the one, but we're trying to set ourselves up for ultimate success.
But I guess it's close enough that 12 million is probably a pretty good estimate. If you guys are doing this 2 years from now, then that estimate is probably not so close. But
No, that's escalation of the thing.
There are price escalations built in. Even from now until 6 or 8 months, there's some price escalations built in.
I want to defer to the rest of the board and perhaps Deanna and Carl, right? But I mean, clearly we're not in a position to give you guys any answers tonight.
Yeah,
but I think at some point, my perspective is like you guys will probably work through the board of selectmen and work out some numbers and timing and so on. They will come to us with numbers for us to talk about.
Correct. May not be the last time you hear about this project before you vote on it. I imagine we'll be in here again. It's kind of too big a project to just kind of say, okay, you guys ready? So we'll be back. I want to get the DPW garage kind of squared away and then we'll just kind of line it up. And they really have to move together. We're not going out for 2 issuances 4 months from each other.
But also remember when Leanne gave her debt service presentation, projecting what you guys would take on, there were already several major projects on that list. And the school's not on it, and I do not believe the Cape was on that either, right? So, I mean,
The Cape was not.
The Cape was not, WPCA
Yeah,
had a modeling it, so those numbers became more larger.
Can I ask one more question? Because I know 7 million is a big number, given the other projects, you know, as far as bonding. On the fundraising side, I would, you know, can you just explain to me beyond the existing donor network? I mean, this is a pretty significant project that I think should get everyone in town excited. Can we go beyond, the current fundraising plan? I mean, I have not heard a word. So personally, I mean, not that I'm the most philanthropic person, but I'd love to contribute, and I haven't heard a word. And we'll be happy to be involved. But I wonder if we can get more creative to bring in more funding to make this more viable.
And you're absolutely right. We haven't started the public campaign as of yet. And as Brett mentioned earlier, we anticipate doing that in the middle of the year, probably June, July timeframe. But the current prospect list that we're working on is long and robust. And if we have the good fortune to get beyond 5 million, we're not gonna stop at 5.2 million. We're gonna keep going. So, but we're not there yet. And that's why, we're trying to be as transparent as we can without having, we're still in the middle of the process. But we're certainly, have a very long and robust prospect list, which we're working through.
One, Steve, I'm gonna have him put you down for $1 million.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Since you asked, consider yourself better. What was I just gonna say? I completely forgot what I was. And it was important too. It was important. I'll think of it.
Stop there, but Mark, all right? And you're in for $1 million too.
Oh, Matt, you okay?
Not so easy. We
That's
just got
5 million.
You, the HVAC system, would the addition have a totally separate system, or would you tie in?
It's a combination of both. They're looking at both pieces. There will be and I don't want to go down a zoning pathway, but a rooftop unit with screens and the whole bit and in that piece, but they are looking at a separate unit because the chiller as it currently sits would not have the full capacity for the expansion, so there's a combination of pieces.
I remembered. If you raise more than let's say you raised 7 million, does that mean the town's only gonna contribute 5, or does that mean we're still gonna do 7 and you'll have extra for contingencies or something?
So, we're gonna raise as much as we can raise, and there's no timeline, right? There's a timeline to this project where we have to start breaking ground soon, and the cash has to be available. So I think that's where the rub comes, right? Where we don't know, the campaign can stay active for a year, 2 years. But we need to fund the project over the next 6 to 12 months. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what
it kind of seems like the answer would be no, like we still need the 7 million. And I guess if there's extra, you're sitting around and all.
I mean, I suppose within the next month, now that we have your, right? If something major happens, we're working through our pipeline as diligently and as quickly as we can, while still maintaining regular operations as Robin and I, and, so if some crazy things happen over the next few months, we're happy to sort of bring that into the conversation. We're not trying to hide that at all, but we're sort of at a version working with CCS where we've set this goal. They feel that goal is completely obtainable to get there. So, that's kind of where we're working at.
Okay, and my only other comment is because you brought up the summer, like you might have to. Like if you ask the schools next summer, I just think that could potentially cause an issue given what's happening this summer with.
Yep, we've
School not being able to have their.
100%. There are no answers officially, but I have been sitting down with the superintendent on this. And again, we haven't come up with the exact plan, but I wanted to come to him early and start the conversation. And that's not to say it has to be the schools. We could technically take our camps program somewhere else. The schools just are the type of spot where it would be easy to move 400 kids over the course of the summer. So we just want to ensure that those programs happen in the summer where we're displaced, because it is so many kids that we work with every summer. We have an incredible camp staff, and we just don't want to lose it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, one quick question, very much related to what Steve and Mark were talking about. And so how did you guys come with the 5-7 split?
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, it was one of the initial conversations that we had with Carl, when at that point we had an estimate of $12 million, and we discussed the 7-5 split. So Carl, I don't know if you have any better memory of that than I do.
We discussed it, yep. And then we had other discussions. But I assume the 5 is based on your fundraising.
Our fundraising.
Yeah, CCA, that's why, that's primary. They have a cost estimate. They said 5 and 7 is realistic. And to your earlier question, the the fundraising will continue. But to get this to referendum in September, there needs to be 5 million, or there needs to be 12 million. However we get there. So if it is 6 on their end, by that point, presumably we'll know.
Right, good luck. Yeah, I'll leave you conversations with Carl in terms of how you guys want to move forward and so on, but, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for coming in. That was.
Thank you. Good job.
Everyone behind you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there a show? Usually have to hear your voice or music.
There is a show tonight, but not in this room, unfortunately. Yeah, there's a show every night.
Yeah.
I think we're going to a pickleball play or something that's happening in May. My wife loves pickleball. There's something happening in May, I know.
Right. Pickleball comedy musical show.
Well, we have eight people going to that one, that's for sure.
Really sold out, so we're gonna.
Wow.
Steve, bring your check with you when you go.
And you join me.
Right, of course. We're gonna miss the pickleball.
I guess. Chief Finance.
Yeah, it's just like
It's your-
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah.
Lord.
You need those doors open. Yeah. It's just so stuffy with those doors closed.
There are
Yeah.
people out there talking, that's why.
I know.
Okay,
But they're welcome.
But yes, they
That's the
are.
reason why the chief is here, and so that's really part of Carl's report, so I'm gonna move up number 9, staff report up to now. So,
Yeah.
you know, keep them through all of it. So,
Just very quickly, I'll start off with this. Chief got back to us. We did have conversations with Enterprise. They didn't seem to really progress to the point where it was going to work with them. Not that it won't work in the future. George, to some of your earlier comments about staggering, but the chief has recommended moving forward with 6 patrol cars, 6 Tahoes. At a cost of 400 and basically 51,000, which is a little less than previously estimated. Part of that is because Wayland Engineering has been so good to the town for so many years, and they continue to be good for the town, to the town. They're giving us a discount on some of the outfitting, and also you're using a local vendor on some other equipment. Where previously all the work had gone to a firm in Middletown. And it came to our attention that there was a local vendor that came to me. I brought it to the chief's attention. He's like, yes, I'm aware. He was already aware. And he sourced it out to make sure it would be adequate for the cars, and it was.
Yeah, more than adequate.
Yeah, so, so it'd be 3 vehicles have been purchased or been ordered, I assume, correct?
Yes.
And the importance of moving forward at this point is we can still order the 27s or
The 26 model year.
26 model year. Okay, so before the contract window closes on that, and we go into 27, and obviously the price will go up. What we're proposing, 451,000 over 4 years. Leanne today did some work on financing. We're estimating financing at about 4.17%. Basically, it would be about 122,000 a year. We put aside 95 a year. That's in the budget this year. What I think should be happening is just over the next 4 years, we put aside an additional 5,000 a year into that. Won't impact the budget hardly. And you'll be at 115, 120 a year, so that when you do your next purchases. And I think the hope, to what you were suggesting a few months ago, so we bought 3 cars, we're now buying 6, different model years or same model year?
They're both gonna be 26.
All
batches.
9 will be,
Yeah, that's why we're trying to move forward on this, so they're projecting a 2.5% increase for 27 model years.
yeah. So, but I think we would I think the chief would probably agree that some of these vehicles could probably outlast those 4 years. And then we might be able to start staggering the purchases, maybe two, and start buying 2 or 3 a year at that point, especially if we start increasing the budget. I think that's probably the idea. I think what we're facing right now is we've bought vehicles in bulk for the last 15, 16 years. We bought all the vehicles, and the vehicles all get tired at the same time. Hopefully this won't be happening, and the chief will be able to roll some vehicles, and, maybe stagger the next purchases as you go into the next cycle. But bottom line on this is, we looked at 4 years, it's about 122 per year. Using the 95, there's 2 other ways we can fund the delta there. Outside services tends to bring in plenty of money. So that would be one source, and the other source would be, is if the chief said, I have 20,000 in my health insurance account, and we could pay for the cars and not touch the outside services. I mean, there are several ways to fund it. It's 20,000 on a $5 billion budget. I don't think it's gonna be an issue. So, that we're bringing this to the board. There's already an outlay for this over the next 4 years, and it will be paid back over the next 4 years like that. So technically, it's really, we want to bring it to you, we want you to be advised of it. Not really seeking a vote on it because there's a designated account for it, and that's where the payments will come from.
Yeah, it's a situation that we're in now that we have to replace the fleet. I do agree with your plan, staggering them. Not just for the longevity of the vehicles, but the equipment too, the computers, the radios, the lights. It all seems to fail at once with this plan we have now. We are offsetting a lot of this cost, the computers and the radios and some of the stalker radar components from outside budget accounts. So this really isn't all encompassing. We're pulling from other sources that we have to really outfit the vehicle completely. But this will put us in a good situation where we get 6 patrol vehicles on the road, hopefully being built in the July, August timeframe. Our cars can last till then, another year or 2, and we're probably gonna be in a tough space where we're burning a lot of oil, and these cars shouldn't be on the road continuously. The plan is to take them off the line, put them in less frontline roles where the school resource officers and the extra duty fleet. So there are less miles being put on with those roles. But this would put us in really good shape if we really get the 6 cars soon. The vendor really just needed the letter of intent to order from us to take advantage of ordering the 26 model years. That's really what I want to move on, because I don't really know when the window's gonna close for 26. I know it's coming soon. And then we'll be forced to get the 27s at like a 2.5% increase. So we're taking advantage of all state bid pricing. So these are the best prices that are available for any municipality for the Tahoes. Tahoe, the Enterprise actually came in a little higher. They weren't even at the state bid. I think I would be pleased with this, and I think the department will be in good shape.
Steve, Eric, we start with you guys first.
No, I have no comments except to congratulate the chief on his victory at the dodgeball game a few weeks back. Great time. And I'm surprised to see you tonight, Chief. I thought you'd be warming up your arm for opening day on Saturday. You took Carl's spot. That's right.
Lily.
Yeah.
Carl, he didn't get the invite.
I got the invite, I'm away.
I'm second.
You got.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You better be able to throw as good a strike as I can. I'm practicing. Anyway.
Chief, I was funny. I ran into the fire chief in Old Line yesterday, and he was sporting a new black Tahoe. They're pretty sharp, and I'm a car guy, so I'm all for it. I think this beautiful town deserves to have a a nice fleet of vehicles here, kind of add to the beauty. So anyway, I'm all for it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, just, are the three that you ordered before, are they on the road? Yeah,
No, they're on, we don't have them yet. They're gonna go straight to the vendor who's gonna build them, but we're hoping this month they're gonna be coming in.
okay.
It's about a 6-week turnaround, to get all the equipment and get their cars built once we get them.
And so you'll have 9. I mean,
Yeah.
3 plus. Do you use all 9, or how do you sort of hold back?
No, they're available, for patrol use and admin use, K9 use. So yeah, they're all go from line as soon as we get them.
Okay. And is there any salvage value to the ones you'll take off?
Well, we're gonna keep them. The ones that are gonna be coming offline are really pretty bad. They're gonna be the Explorers that are 10, 12 years old.
Okay.
Very little value. There are some agencies that will take them. We probably can get maybe a few $1,000s each for them. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of value left to the cars. And that's the plan. You keep your cars for 12 years or so. You get every mile out of them that you can. You get your value out of them that way. And because we don't have to, it costs a lot of money to outfit these cars, to put lights on them and all the equipment, and you don't want to keep rebuilding these cars.
Right.
So we were getting rid of the, like 3 cycles ago, it sounds like the 2012.
Yeah.
So how many police vehicles, I guess, cruisers, not like your car, I would exclude, but how many do we have? Do we have like 18 then when all
So
is
there's
done? or-
25 total.
Okay,
Out of the 25, 10 are dedicated patrol.
okay, there are 15 non-patrol cars.
Yeah, but there are a lot of more special service vehicles, like the pickup trucks.
Yeah.
The animal control, vehicle,
Right.
a couple admin vehicles, a couple of detective vehicles.
And those don't need to be replaced every,
No.
Yeah, 'cause they're not
no,
doing the
they have
daily.
low miles, and
Okay.
those we hang on for quite a while.
all right, great, thank you.
Alright. So what did you anticipate these 6 to come in?
These 6, if we order them now, there was about a 4-month turnaround,
Okay,
something summer.
so, yeah, it's not quite 8 months. So I'm trying to figure out whether we have already staggered 3 and 6.
That was,
Close, right, yeah.
Yeah, right, I mean, we're there, to a degree. The other 3 aren't patrol though, so that doesn't help stagger the patrol fleet as much. One's a K9, but,
We did not need a vote at all, really.
Yeah.
We don't need a vote.
No.
Yeah, we're done. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
that.
you, thanks for coming in, appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Good luck Saturday.
Yeah. Doesn't go straight down.
Yeah, throw it the.
I'm bummed I'm missing it. Yeah.
It's his first year here, you should be able to do it.
Thank you, take care.
Take care.
Are we on the report?
No,
Let's go back, yeah, because Eric has got to leave by 8.
Yeah.
And, Leanne, you're up next for the next 2, so I'll let you decide which one to do first.
I'm gonna do the discussion of the timeline for the mill rate.
All right.
Is that okay?
Very good.
All right.
Absolutely.
Pardon me?
Yeah. Please.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, good evening, everyone. Good to see you. I'm going to start with just a brief overview of the timeline of the mill rate calculation, just to give you some background. The grand list, as you know, is in as of October 2025. Our assessor works on it until she signs off on it in January 31st. All municipalities sign off on the grand list at that point in time. We do our first pass of the mill rate calculation around then. We have a little mill rate committee, Carl, myself, the assessor, tax collector. And then after that, we have some people that can appeal their evaluations. That all goes through the month of March. So then we take that into consideration. And I'm sure you're probably all aware, but I'll say it anyway, that, the grand list is a moving target. It changes all the time. People buy, sell cars, make improvements to their homes, etc. Every time they do that, it affects the grand list. The other thing that we do as a committee is we look at the tax abatements. The Board of Finance, you approve the elderly abatement, and there's other kinds of abatements that take place for firefighters, etc. We take all of that into consideration when we work on the mill rate, and I'll go over all of those specific dollar amounts when we after the referendum and when the Board of Finance votes on it, so you can see all the math specifically. And then we wait till, like, just like the week before the referendum to do our final mill rate calculation to make sure that we have it as close as possible. Once it's voted on by the Board of Finance, then it goes to the tax collector and they create the bills and send them out. So that's the process for the mill rate calculation. And there's a few very key parts of it, aside from the grand list is one of the big pieces. Obviously, the budget process goes on simultaneously with that. And now you all have locked in the expenditure side of the equation. So that's all set in stone, just under 55 million. That's added to the equation. And then finally, the last piece that we work on is the revenue assumptions. So, we typically keep our revenue assumptions very stable year over year. Obviously, we look at them every single year, but we keep them stable. We know that there's economic situations that are going to make them plus or minus every year, but we have had success in being very close to the ballpark in many of them, so we have confidence in those numbers. However, with that said, there's one assumption that I do want to talk about a bit tonight, and that's the interest income. That one has had a lot of variability in the last several years, and we've gone from a $75,000 budget to a $750,000 budget. So that one I actually do a lot of modeling on, and I thought I might just take a few moments to explain to the Board of Finance what I do to give you confidence in the numbers that we are going to be recommending. I'm going to try and share my screen really quick. I just have a couple graphs that I want to show you. Whoops. And that's the wrong one. Do you see the off? What do you see?
Average cash balances by fiscal year.
Oh, good. That's the right one. I see something else. Okay. So, I, with our accounting system, am able to go and model what our average balances are. I do it month by month, and I wasn't going to put all those spaghetti strings out in front of you, but obviously we have a flow of funds going up in July, coming down, going up in January, and then coming down to the end of the year. And, this is the average balance throughout the year, which I use for my calculation going back into fiscal 18. That's 17.6 million there, up to my projection to the end of this year of 22.266. Couple things want to point out that affect this calculation. One, right here is where we got our ARPA money. In fiscal year 23, we received $3 million, so you can see the jump there. And in fiscal year 23 is when we actually changed our investment strategy. Interest rates, were starting to edge up, and we have a three-part investment strategy. Obviously, we have our bank funds that, is our operating cash flows. That's overnight rates. We have the money that we keep at the short-term investment fund at the treasurer's office. That's a money market fund. The weighted average maturity of that is about 30 to 45 days. So we get a little extra boost in those funds. And then we have our treasury portfolio, which has a weighted average maturity of about 12 months to 18 months. So, we kind of play on the curve a little bit so we can take advantage of interest rates as they rise and as they fall. So the red part here is when we took $10 million and put it out into the portfolio. And obviously the blue part is our balances that we maintained at STIF as well as at at our bank at Webster Bank. The increase here that we see in all of these balances, I should say, is obviously associated with our townwide budget surpluses. Now, we've had several years of high surpluses, and we are about to spend them. We've had a lot of conversation in the Board of Finance. Tonight, we talked about spending lots of money. And, from a big picture perspective, when we went through COVID, the government put tons of stimulus and threw it at everything. So we had this huge influx of stimulus, not only ARPA money, but also a lot of grant programs, et cetera, et cetera. And, we took advantage of all of those. And obviously, all of this stimulus turned into a high level of inflation. You throw a lot of money at everything, you're going to get inflation. And so we went from 0% interest rates, and we've had rising rates. They're starting to fall now, however. Again, you never know what's going to happen in the economy, and they've come back up a little bit because, excuse me, everything that's been going on in Iran, et cetera. But we were lucky to generate all of these years of surpluses, and we haven't borrowed since 2019, and now we are about to spend all of that money. So I'm gonna stop sharing now. Well, maybe I'll leave this up for a minute, just so you could look at it while I'm speaking. So I assume that for next fiscal year that we're going to have an average bank balance of about 25 million. We have about $10 million in our rainy day fund, and we're going to have about $15 million between our off-budget funds and our general fund, et cetera. So right here, we'll end the fiscal year with about $33 million. And I estimate that we're probably going to spend about 10 million of it. And truly, I do believe that we're going to be spending lots of money. And I'll let Carl speak to that if he wants to more specifically in his report. But, we talked about a little bit of it tonight. $1.4 million is sitting in these bank balances for the DPW garage. We have $1.7 million for the Board of Ed HVAC project. We have $3 million of grant projects that has not yet been spent. At one point, we had $8 million worth of grant projects going on. We've spent some of that money. We also have committed out of our capital non-recurring account about more. It's actually more than this, but I just picked out kind of the big ones to make my point. We have $1 million we're finishing up the crosswalk. We haven't finished paying for that. We have the money that we set aside for the library. So, there's $1 million. And, through COVID, we also did a lot of initiatives. Like we have $750,000 in two large initiatives we just talked about the one at Mariner Way, and we're spending, $120,000 of that. We have the affordable housing initiative. So those two equal 750,000, and things are happening with those. So that's how I get down to $25 million. I really think we're going to be spending lots of money. And so the next thing that I do is I look at what is the average Fed Fund futures rate from July 1, 2026 to June 30, 2027. And right now it's 3.4%. Excuse me. I should say that I'm going to recommend that we stay the same at 750,000 as we were last year because of these variables, just so you know where the recommendation is going to be coming from. The average federal fund rate is 3.4%. And so 25 million times that equals $850,000. It's a little higher. But I will say, when I did this before the Iran war, the federal funds future rate was 3%. So it's $750,000. Of course, we have always been conservative. I want to be conservative. I don't want us chasing our tails at the end of the fiscal year. Looking for money if we don't happen to meet our budget. So other considerations that we have to think about in terms of a budget surplus. So, people want to know, are we going to have one of these huge budget surpluses again? I predict that the budget surpluses are going to start to moderate and come back down to more normal territories because we're coming out of this environment that has been so favorable for us. So other considerations that we have to think about. First, by design, we try to structurally, we don't, generate a small surplus, and we do that through our assumption of 99% on our tax collection. So we're conservative on our revenue estimates because we know that we need to keep our rainy day fund at a healthy rate. And so we're going to need about $264,000 right off the top of the surplus to keep us at 17.7%. The Board of Ed probably isn't going to have a surplus this year because they write off there they're going to take the 2%, $617,000. We have permanently decided that we have strategies that send all of our mini golf revenues to the Park and Rec Strategic Fund. So there's a lot of other moving parts that are going to keep our surplus coming down going forward. And my final thoughts that I'd like to leave you with in terms of setting the mill rate, in terms of assumptions, in terms of the budget surplus, we have had very strong conservative budget practices for several years. Moody's has increased our rating because of it. We're building and maintaining our reserves. We haven't borrowed any money for whatever that is, 8 years now. And by doing all of these things, we have been saving, we have been using those reserves and doing things, and therefore we have saved future taxpayers increases because we're not going to have a project next year that because we've already have money to pay for it. The other thing that I do is I follow the GFOA good recommended practices for municipal finance. And with regard to rainy day funds, our budget reserve fund, they recommend that we have at least 2 months of operating income, and that's their floor, that you should have. And we are at the floor. We have 17.7% in the rainy day fund and 2.1 months. So, it's important. It's not like we are loaded with cash in our rainy day fund. We are right at the recommended floor level from a municipal finance perspective. So, I think that our strategies, again, are very strong, building the reserves. We've been very thoughtful in all of our long-term obligation strategies, debt management, capital management, et cetera, building these reserves so that we can avoid spikes in our mill rate going forward. And I'm just going to stop there and let anybody ask any questions that you may have. I will present this at the after the referendum, and I'll have a memo that has all of these types of details in it. But I thought it would be the chair thought it would be a good idea if we talk about this now. So if you have any questions or anything that you wanted to raise, because the Board of Finance is fairly new going through this budget season, that we could do it beforehand as opposed to on the night that we were laying the mill rate.
Mr. Chairman, we'll just
Yes,
add on to that, not add on, but we've had some large surpluses over the years, and one of the things I've stated is, look at the state of Connecticut. They've had huge surpluses too. And now look at the state of Connecticut. They're talking about Lamont maybe looking at his first deficit for the first time. And I think to Leanne's point, that's what you're gonna start seeing is people aren't gonna be rolling in liquidity as quite as much as they have been. Certainly the state may not be, and that is evident. And I think we're kind of tracking like the state did. And Leanne, I didn't hear that. I did hear it, and it shocked me. Before the Iran war, Fed funds rate estimate was 3, and now it's 3.4. That to me, the variability on that speaks to why I believe this board should be cautious moving forward with any interest income assumptions. That scares me, what you said, because that is a huge swing in the course of 45 days. And then the other point you made, and there's a whole bunch of points I could make on this, but Moody's. I mean, Moody's has endorsed this process. I mean, and we didn't ask for an upgrade and we got it. And I think that is a testament to what we have been doing for a while. But when you look at projects, I went back and I pulled the projects that we've done for the last 4 years with surpluses. There weren't many of these memos because we didn't have surpluses like this. There's only 4 of them. But I looked at it and resiliency, $285,000 in either matching or proactive resiliency projects. We're not gonna, I mean, that's gonna be a very difficult fund in the operating budget. The DPW garage, Park and Rec, we've thrown a lot of money at Park and Rec over the last few years from the surplus. And I said it before, and I'll say it again tonight, chasing the downside of this is gonna be a lot more difficult than going up if you have to go down. So if there comes a day, and hopefully there won't, that we need to reduce from 750 to 500 in a budget year, when the budget is gonna be going up 3%, now you're looking at a mill rate increase of not 0.32 like we are this year, but now you're looking at one that might be double that. Because you have to reduce your revenue and budget. And that is a budget that I think would be tenuous going to the voters. The other couple other points, the surplus is entirely within the purview of the Board of Finance. So this Board of Finance can, at the end of this, if you see a surplus, I mean, you will this year, but even in fiscal year 27, sometimes you lose track of, I mean, the years are just going by. Couple things you can do with that. We've gotten to 17% because of surpluses. We were at 5%. Steve, do you have to go?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I'm being summoned by my 2.5-year-old here. I got to transform from Board of Finance to Papa. Great presentation, Leanne. Thank you very much. And Carl, I appreciate all your comments. Everybody have a great night.
Good night, Steve. We've gotten to 17% because we were able to build through surpluses. The capital non-recurring fund sits at around 2 million, 2.1 million. Leanne mentioned spending out of that account. We may want to use that capital account to either put it towards the DPW garage, the Saybrook Park, to offset some of the bonding costs from a little bit of what we heard tonight. I don't know. That's just a possibility. But I would also submit that $2 million on a $50 million budget is not that huge a free capital account. I don't know. It's, that may be an account that we may want to consider building it, because 2 million on 50 million combined, 50 million plus, seems maybe a little bit light, but we do a lot of projects out of it. I did print out the last 4 years of surplus funds and how we use them. And I don't know that there's gonna be a vote tonight, but I mean, this is conversation. I want to hear from everybody here. One other suggestion is Leanne talked about the floor of the reserves. The board could consider going to 18, 19, or 20% on the rainy day fund. That's another option. And then you lock in a certain amount that you can always bank on interest income from. So you have a larger account from which to draw that interest income. That being said, that rainy day fund used to be 15%. The former first selectman made a decision to use that rainy day account to fund renovations at the high school. And he used about, I think, $1 to $2 million offset the bonding on it, so it went to 5%. And we built it from 5% to 17%. So the rainy day budget, in theory, with maybe a different board makeup, probably not this board, maybe a different first selectman, is not necessarily sacrosanct either. So those are just some random comments I have. The projects that we funded over the last 4 years from reserves, I looked at them today and I'm like, most of these would not have gotten budgeted in an operating budget. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't have gotten done. And I think it's just made our quality. We put about $1 million towards sidewalks from reserves. Not quite, maybe about $1 million. And I get more compliments about sidewalks in this town, good compliments, not bad. Because we had trippers, and now we've only repaired basically the sidewalks that we had. We didn't build new sidewalks. We've only repaired sidewalks that were faulty. And people drive from all over, from other towns and from north of I-95, like where the walking's not quite as good, and they walk, and they're gonna be able to do more walking. So the money we've taken from the surpluses with the blessing of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, it's just gone a long ways towards really improving the quality of life in this town, both for Park and Rec, both for adults. We've used some of that money to assist with the Kate projects. The Kate talked about the columns. We also did the gutters. That was not an inexpensive project that we did over there too. Anyway, I just wanted to throw some of those thoughts out there to build on what Leanne had said. So I'll just leave it at that.
Eric, your hands up?
Yes. There are two questions. Carl is not going to like the second one, but I think it's interesting for us to know. But the first question is, Leanne, when you pulled that list of the last 5 fiscal year surpluses up, I think the Board of Ed number totaled 3.5 million. I think because you and I have talked about this before. And if I'm not mistaken, every dollar of that has gone back to the Board of Ed every single year, correct?
It is correct.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's, Larry, if you're talking the last 4 or 5 years, you can go back longer than that. George was there. There were some.
Yeah.
Leanne and I had this conversation one year. There was one year where they were pulling projects that were 3 years in advance after they had finished all their capital projects for that year that they were knocking off. And I remember saying, what kind of money did they have in that? And then they had a $1 million surplus. Now that was a different time. So anyway, go ahead, Eric. I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. The second question, and likely a very unpopular question here, but can you give us like the 60-second elevator pitch here on worst case scenario, the budget goes to referendum and does not pass? What that looks like? Because typically, right, on referendum night, we adjourn at 8 o'clock. We're there. And I don't mean just that meeting. I mean outside of that, like what is going to happen if that occurred? Hopefully it does not. Obviously it's not a good situation, but can you just give us like a 60-second overview on what occurs if that happens?
Yeah, I assume what you mean by that is the process.
Well, if the budget gets voted down, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. The process after that, correct. Yes.
Yeah, so the Board of Finance the referendum will again occur in 2 weeks, okay? It goes from the 12th, is that what we are?
Yes.
It goes from the 12th to the 26th. There will be, according to our charter, a referendum 2 weeks from the 12th. And then 2 weeks after that, every 2 weeks. The Board of Finance has to have one public hearing. Presumably, you would just do that prior to a Board of Finance meeting. So let's just like run a playbook here. God forbid the referendum goes down May 12th. You meet May 19th at 6 o'clock. 6:30. Decide what you wanna do, make no changes, make some changes, whatever you wanna do, you can send it. I was talking to Sarah Becker today, she said, we had a time like 20, I don't even know what it was, it might have been 30 years ago. Budget failed, that's how long she's been here. Budget failed and they sent the same budget back and it passed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, I was like, really, you know, you would have a public hearing, you would have public hearing, a board of finance meeting, vote on a budget on May 19. We then take what you voted on and we have to make it available in the town clerk's office, we probably make it available online and at the library too. And that's 5 days before the next referendum, that information has to be available to the voters, so it's not complicated. I hate to tell you this, I looked at it like in the last day or two for the first time in a long time, because I haven't had to look at it, and it's really a very clear process, which is nice. But let's hope we don't get there.
Yeah, I agree. So essentially, it goes to referendum every 2 weeks until something
no.
happens.
Well, yeah, and look, when you get into that, the bills don't go out and then you end up on July 1st and you're not collecting money. You have a rainy day account. One year I know we borrowed money from Liberty Bank, which was our partner bank at the time. This year it would be Webster if we needed to do that. So, it's not a situation really you really want to get into. Right, exactly, right. Jeff, Jeff is shaking his head. And, but in theory, Leanne, I haven't ever asked you this question. I mean, if you got into late June, would you go into the rainy day fund or would you borrow money?
I think that, well, I'd have to check, but I mean, we have sufficient cash at the moment. I just don't know procedurally how we would, it probably would come out of the rainy day fund. And then when we got the money back, it would go back in.
Yeah.
We have $9 million. It costs us probably, $4 million a month. So, well, I told you we have 2 months worth of operating income. So we probably would be okay for July and August.
Further depressing interest income. But look, I don't, we're not gonna get there. As a board, let's just collectively say we're not gonna be there, okay?
Right.
Eric, you good? No questions? Thank you. Board member, yeah, please.
Sure. Leanne, thank you for going through that. Obviously in a prior meeting, I suggest that we're being overly conservative on interest income, so I think you addressed a number of those questions. I guess the part that I didn't fully appreciate, and I would like to go through it in a lot more detail, is why you project only 25 million as an average cash balance in the next fiscal year. That there's a lot of spending that's obviously going on, and it almost sounds like it's early in the fiscal year in order to have the average cash balance for the year drop many millions of dollars down to 25 million. And I don't want to start pulling out spreadsheets, but I want to know what your assumptions are for you to come up with that number, because it seems low.
But I hear what you're saying. So, it's my assumption is that it comes out rather quickly. I think that you could tell, obviously, because I don't know exactly when it's going to come out. And, to be honest with you, I'm not trying to be razor thin on this estimate. I'm trying to be conservative on this estimate. So we're starting the year with $33 million. We're going to spend 10 million of that over the course of the year. So therefore 23 million, my estimate's 25, that type of thing. Because, a lot of things, there's a lot of variables that do happen. Like what happens if we're in July and August? What happens if interest rates fall really fast because, we go into recession? So, I think that, if We really wanted to if this was a for-profit company, and I was the chief financial officer, I'm sure I would be sharpening my pencil and looking at every single month and every single up, down, and turn of the cash flows to see whatever we could project. But that's not the case for a town. And I'm not afraid to have a budget surplus. I want a budget surplus, a small one, I don't want a huge one, but I don't look at it as overtaxation of our resident because of our policies that we have in place for the Board of Finance. It says if you have a surplus, you can only spend that, or you can only put that money towards things that are capital related or reserve related, or in the capital non-recurring account and things like that, that would ultimately be an expense in a future budget year. You're just, so the taxpayer might be up one year, down another. And I think that's what the point Carl was making, is all these projects that we have funded over the past several years with surplus, we don't have to add them to the budget now. So it evens out over the longer term. You get the things done. And then on years when we have, a year where we have we're razor thin because we have some economic event that occurs, that's okay too. We have a great rainy day fund. We have reserves. We have everything that can, heck, we made it through COVID with flying colors. We were really worried about that. And so that's why, that's how I do my estimates.
And assuming that we do a bond in September, that's the best estimate, how the money comes in, 8 million comes in, or whatever, how quickly does it go out? Because obviously, to the extent that you have proceeds, you're earning interest on those proceeds until such time as the money goes out to fund the K or to fund the public works garage or whatever. Are in your assumption, is it out over a period of 2 months or 4 months or 6 months, or do you have interest income from the bond bit built into your estimate?
I do not. And there's rules about that. When you issue bonds, how much you can earn on that money, and how you can use that money and things like that. So I did not include that as part of the assumption of the balance that we would have toward interest income in fiscal year 27.
Yeah, you probably know some of those rules. You're not allowed to arbitrage that money in, yeah. Right, I assume you knew that.
Oh, okay. All right, I would like to go through some of the puts and takes, because I tried to write down all the things that were causing money to go out the door, and I think I missed 2 or 3 of them, and I don't want to hold anybody else.
You want me to say them again? I did say it quickly. So 1.4 million DPW garage. And that could, end up being more. Some of that could come out of capital non-recurring. I think that's the point Carl was making. 1.7 million for the HVAC project at the Board of Ed. I do not know what their plan is for that, but I know they want to do that. I have a list of grant projects that I keep track of. So it's, the Ferry Road dock, the Ferry Road soccer field. The Ferry Road dock expansion is the harbor management one that just came forward. The soccer field. We have, let's see what else is on here. The whole project down to repair the seawall. And the other thing that, one other reason that I should bring up is a lot of these grants are reimbursable. So what does that mean? That means we put the money out first and then we get it back at the end. So we have, for example, the sidewalk to Westbrook is $1.6 million, and we only have 347,000 of that. That's the town's contribution. So I also, I say to myself, well, we're going to have to put that up. We're running some of our as a strategy. We, instead of borrowing money for the DPW equipment, we're running that fund in the negative. I didn't talk about those types of things, but then right now we're working on a cybersecurity upgrade. What else we have in here that is large? Those are ones, but
Library.
If they
Oh, the
ever-
library, thank you. Yes, the
I'm just
library.
reminded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we have 750,000 of town funds. And then the crosswalks, we haven't paid for those. And we have, the two large initiatives. We have Mariner Way and affordable housing. Mariner Way is 250,000, affordable housing is 500,000. They're working on those projects now. So that totals about $10 million.
I mean, well, we don't, I don't want.
And I did not go through the entire list of projects. I probably could have found more. I just picked out the big ones, to say, all right, if all of these things go out, because money comes in, goes out, comes in, there's a lot of moving parts.
But the idea generally is that the spending is early. The way you're forecasting it, the spending is early in the 2026-2027 fiscal year.
Correct. Yes, that's fair. That's a fair statement. The spending is early, and then we will also be spending for reimbursable grants. And I don't assume that.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Eric, well, sorry.
Who's ultimately going to decide? We've talked about like 5 pretty big projects already tonight, but from the Public Works Garage, Saybrook Point Town Park, potentially WPCA. I mean, a significant amount of projects that we're talking about. And like George said, it doesn't include anything from the Board of Education. Who ultimately is going to make the decision on what we bond for is and how that and which projects we include?
Yeah. So it'll be a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen. But I'm assuming that the Board of Finance at the end of the day can take that recommendation and adjust it. I don't know, because you're the appropriations board at the end of the day. Quite frankly, it's been a while, so I probably would talk to bond counsel about that, but everything else works the same way. So I don't know why this would be any different. One other just quick note on the revenue. So budget this year is up, we're estimating about 0.32 at this point, assuming everything passes. And there may be a good argument for higher interest income, whether there is or there isn't, okay? When I look historically at 0.32, I see a successful budget. It's a relatively low increase. It's something that we have striven for over the course of the last 15 years, truly. That I've never gone out there and said, no tax increase ever, really, except one year, because just a bunch of factors came into play. And there was one year where we had basically a 0.1, something next to nothing. But I think what the citizens of this town have been reasonably happy with is the modest, no spikes, we talked about that a lot, and reasonably modest budgeting. And forget the Board of Ed, but with grand list growth and everything, we find ourselves in that situation again. And going from 0.32 to 0.027 or 0.025, I don't know that is necessarily a win for this year. When next year you may have different budget pressures, to be honest with you, for the 28 budget. You may have some additional, depending on what gets bonded. This board may want to say, well, interest income has been steady, interest rates are now 3.4 still, Kevin Warsh didn't become Fed chair, and therefore rates aren't going to zero. But if we end up bonding a certain amount, and in our debt service goes from 2.6 to 2.75, you may say, well, geez, we can just raise our interest income and offset that bond amount. So I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying for the 27 fiscal year, I think the Board of Finance sits on a budget that the citizens will be okay with. I really do. I mean, based on 15 years of budgeting. That's my last comment. I don't know what is necessarily, other than a math problem saying the math supports this. I'm not so sure what the win is necessarily in terms of depressing the mill rate another 0.05 or whatever it would be. I don't know what it would be necessarily. So that's just a editorial comment at this point, but it's late.
Well, if I put on my taxpayer hat, and I, I think you guys have done a tremendous job. I always brag about how low our taxes are. And we have really good services in this town too. That said, it's as a taxpayer, it's like, why do we have these big surpluses? Why don't I get to keep that? And if it were 1 or 2 years, I'd say it's an anomaly, but it seems we have been this kind of built into our budget process now. Come up with a big budget, or come up with a budget, I should say, end up with a big surplus. And yes, it is nice to have that money for things that wouldn't have been in the budget, but there could be a reason they're not in the budget. So I just want to kind of stand up and say, for those taxpayers who might be watching, that basically it's, it is good for us to have this surplus money, but I'm always somebody who thinks the taxpayer should keep, and I hate this with the state. It's like, why are you charging me more when you have extra? I don't have extra. I want the extra back. And I agree that the interest income is a big part of that surplus, but also it's been pretty consistently, blown out of the water. So, I'd be more in favor of, and please take no offense, Leanne, but raising our interest income expectation. It's somewhat to see looking back, I've only been on the board for a little while, but looking back at the older budgets to see some of these line items, it's like, what was the thinking for it to be off by that much? Interest income, I know, that's something beyond our control, what the rates are. And it's always great when rates are going up and we're getting more and more by accident. Good for us, keeps all of our taxes lower.
Right.
But I just wonder if there's a perception that, why are we having such big surpluses? And then maybe doing things that, it sounds like you would know better than me. It sounds like maybe you don't think the townspeople would support in a budget. But they would spend the money.
I'm just saying you'd have a very different budget. I think
there'd be a bigger budget.
or not even bigger. I think some of the projects just wouldn't get budgeted.
I guess I'm just trying to say, like, if I want to spend money, I want to budget for it. And I'll take any windfalls I can with extra interest, but we've had, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but north of $500,000 over, am I right? Anybody knows these numbers?
Yep.
And that's a lot of money. I can see as a taxpayer looking at that, like, especially conservative taxpayer, what are you doing? What do we have there? I won't give that money back to me. So I'm not saying we should do that. I never want one of these gimmicks like Lamont with the checks or Bush with the checks or whatever that they mail out, but I'd like to be a little tighter, a little tighter.
I think, and I'm not trying to feel defensive here, so don't take it that way, but this is, what is happening to us is also happening to other municipalities, the state, the government. So it's not an Old Saybrook specific nice problem to have, but it is something that is happening to all of the different towns. I'll just add that to the conversation.
Meaning the annual budget surpluses?
Well, the interest income, the upside surprise on interest income.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand it. My concern is more for the overall, like these big surpluses, and if the interest is in one place where we can narrow that down, why not? But again, I'm just one person, just wanted to put my opinion out there.
Leanne, quick question. So when you quoted the 25 million, does that include the rainy day, the 70% rainy day fund?
Yes, the rainy day fund, all of our balances. Well, and I should also say too that not all of our balances, some of our funds, and we're probably going to do that. I hope we're going to do that off budget another time. But I will go through some of the funds that we have. The money goes back into those funds for statutory reasons and things like that. So it's the general fund, and then most of our other funds that we earn interest on, and all of that money is taken into consideration for this assumption.
Eric, any other comments, questions? No? Nothing else? Okay.
No, I want to think about the interest income.
Absolutely.
There are other estimates in there that I'm totally comfortable with, but we do regularly collect more in like building permit fees than we budget, and I'm not at all suggesting that we change what we're budgeting for building permit fees. Real estate conveyance taxes, we consistently collect more than what we budget, and I'm not in any way suggesting that we change that number. I want to think more about the interest income.
So Eric, just I mean, clearly from tonight's conversation, there is a lot of questions about interest income and surplus and so on. So we're not going to do anything tonight, but on the night of the referendum, May 12th, I mean, just some thoughts, right? Whether we could have an action item, whether we want to do some changes on the what is that? It wasn't just interest income, but the
Local revenues, the local revenues.
Thank you. Local revenues, yeah, all of that, right? And so in terms of all the assumptions that go into that, right? In addition to interest income, all the other assumptions, right? So by increasing that, we'll of course change the mill rate. So and we cannot have this conversation online. I mean, we could potentially have this conversation right after the town meeting on the 4th. Because theoretically, that is a board meeting.
Yeah.
But it won't be an open meeting though, so. Anyway, just some thought, Eric. Yep.
I had just more of a question on the, cause I'm thinking like, what, worst case scenario, so we get the vast majority of our income from property taxes. Like, what's a bad year? Like suddenly there's the properties on the Connecticut shore start devaluing, or people just can't afford to pay their taxes. I mean,
We have
an income tax I can see can go down, but a property tax, like.
property tax,
no matter what.
it's been steady for 20 years, yeah.
So like, what I'm trying to
We
envision,
collect
what could happen,
99%.
what could happen to make us need to spend this 17%? You're like, oh, it's a big emergency. I just can't see how that could-
Nobody's talking about spending the 17%.
No, I mean, we wanna have this rainy day fund. Rainy day, meaning, like Leanne mentioned, if there's a recession, right?
Yeah.
And I can see how that definitely affects the state revenues. That doesn't affect maybe less building going on, but property taxes aren't gonna go down.
They're not, they shouldn't go down.
What would probably happen, first of all, the answer to your question is that people wouldn't be able to afford to pay their taxes because the tax bills are sent out and they're supposed to pay them, and they have been. Typically what would lead to something would be an unexpected expenditure, very large, an emergency event, a hurricane, whatever, something like that, that we wouldn't get reimbursed for. So a large unexpected expenditure, that could come our way, that you have to do. And an economic decline. So no houses are moving, no houses are being built. People are tightening up their belts and they're not, whatever, like, though they're not going to park and rec events and things like that. So we've been in an environment where the economy has been very good. And obviously I explained about, what's going on with the interest rates. So we've been hitting our targets for many years now, but a recession and people not paying their taxes and a large expenditure is what could cause us some angst.
Okay, thank you. I just don't have that experience.
All right, anything else? Thank you very much, Leanne. It is way past 8:30. Eric, I appreciate you staying here, and I thought you had to leave by 8, but I appreciate you staying on. I'm going to suggest that, can we move your off-budget presentation another time, Ian? Thank you so much, gosh. I don't want to keep you any longer. Is that okay with everyone here? Yeah. Thank you, thank you. That's my report.
I'm good.
Thank you.
We reported out.
Public comment, everybody's gone. Dave, any comments from you? Is that the same Dave we made that? That was a chair here a while back?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the same Dave.
The esteemed Dave Lemay.
The one and only Dave Lemay, I guess. All right, thanks. Comments from board members? Comments from me, just a few quick comments. So we will have a May 4th town meeting.
Annual budget meeting.
Annual budget meeting. And so, and that's gonna start at something.
6:30 probably.
6:30 at the middle of the room.
Clock, I think.
6:30.
Find out.
Put it in there.
It's 6:30. 6:30, yeah.
6:30, thank you. And so we all will be there that night. So, last time we talked about this, we will cancel the May 5th Board of Finance meeting.
Yes.
And so this will be due voted to.
Yeah, May 5th, right.
The May 5th?
Yeah.
You gonna cancel it?
I will.
Yes.
And so people are wondering why there's no me on the 5th. Hopefully they're listening and there'll be the minutes. It will be canceled. And then, but there will be a Board of Finance meeting on the 12th. A special one, and so somehow we will notice that this will happen at 8 o'clock. And hopefully, very shortly after 8,
Yes.
as opposed to a long count that night. And one other quick question, that is, when do we need to stop talking about the budget? Cause you were saying at some point.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can still talk about the budget. Typically, you don't publicly try to sway people one way or another as an elected.
So when is that?
Now,
Oh, now, already. That's it.
but
Okay. Thanks for.
I mean, I don't think it's that, should say, it's a law, right? I don't know that anybody's really gonna, or any letters to the editor.
With that, anything else, people? No, I have nothing else to say. Again, thank you so much. Deanne, thank you very much. I'll say thank you before you sign up again. Eric, thank you very much for staying through the whole night. I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, Jeff. Second. Thank you, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you.